Hey guys, welcome to Passionate Lives. On this channel we interview passionate people about the things that inspire and motivate them to do the things they do, as well as tips and strategy videos just like this one. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. On this video we're going to take a look at the 10 top strategies that you can implement right now to reduce your anxiety. Coming up. Tip number 10. Don't take yourself too seriously. Most people spend so much time worrying about what other people think. The reality is, what other people think of us is really none of our business. It's far better that we concentrate on doing things that we enjoy, that are making us happy, and forget worrying about what other people think. Just as an experiment, go get yourself a wig. Walk around the local shopping centre and see what happens. Okay, you're going to be feeling maybe uncomfortable at the beginning, but you'll probably make a lot of people's day. And at the end of the day, that will make you feel so much better and it will reduce your anxiety. Tip number 9. Music. Music has a profound effect on our emotions and moods. Just imagine the last time that you put on one of your favourite songs and it took you back to a time in your past when you were happy and things were going well. The same can be said for negative music, songs that incur some kind of negative emotion in your head. Also look at the genres of music. There are certain genres that maybe have a slow beat, have lyrics that are quite depressing, that really aren't going to be helpful for your anxiety, and yet perversely, a lot of people with anxiety are drawn to those kind of songs. It's a self-perpetuating cycle, and to break that cycle, one of the things we can do is to change the types of music that we listen to. Put on a song with a beat, something uplifting, something inspiring, something that brings in you positive emotions, something where you can get up and dance to, something where you can just lose some energy over, and you'll be surprised at how quickly your anxiety will be reduced. On the other hand, if you put on negative songs that quite have depressing lyrics and quite a slow beat, it's going to slow you down. So just take a think for a while about the kind of music that you play and ask yourself, is it really helping your mood? Just something very small like changing the types of music you listen to can really reduce your levels of anxiety. Tip number 8. Friends. It's really important that we have a good circle of friends around us. People that we can turn to when we're in crisis or when we're feeling low. Women are much better than men, but both sexes need to keep that circle going. When we get depressed or get anxious, it's very easy to withdraw into a kind of safe place. We don't want to be around other people in case they catch our depression. But that's just not true. Depression or anxiety aren't something that's contagious, even though it can feel like that. When we get isolated and withdraw, we're increasing our risk of becoming anxious and depressed. So we need to go against the flow sometimes and go out and see people. Even though our brain is going to be resistant, we still need to overcome those barriers and go out and socialise. Maybe even if it's only once a week, or however often you want to do it, just get out there, catch up with your friends over a coffee, face to face. And don't fall for this idea that you're social and you're connected just because you've got lots of Facebook friends. Online world is completely different and will not help your mental health. Go out there, face to face, forget your phones, go and meet people, talk to people, and you will find your level of anxiety gets reduced. Tip number 7. Get yourself a hobby. Like the last tip, it's really important that we go out and we meet people. When you have a hobby, or you have a passion that you just can't stop talking about. You want to meet people who are like-minded, who are also into your hobby or passion, and it just reduces your risk of becoming anxious or depressed. You're going out there, you're connecting to the community, you're connecting to friends, and you're doing something physical or something emotional, whatever it is, but you're actually actively doing something. The government's ABC thing, act, belong, commit, is really powerful, because once we belong to somewhere, we have a sense of community and we commit to it. So whether it's once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever it is, we're committed to that cause or that passion, and we often find that by committing to something and going there regularly, we're meeting people, we're learning new skills, we're enjoying ourselves, we're actually reducing our level of anxiety. Tip number 6, timing. Timing is a really important factor in terms of anxiety. When we're behind the clock, our anxiety levels increase. Maybe we have panic attacks or we're nervous, we're not performing well. Take an example of two people who both have an interview at 10 o'clock. For both of them, it's a really important interview that they really need to do well in, because it's a job they've been wanting for a long time and they're really hopeful that they can do well and get this job. Now, one person who has bad time management might not get out of bed until 9 or 9:30. They're rushing to get ready, they skip breakfast, they rush to the interview, and potentially 5 or 10 minutes late for the interview, which doesn't bode well. They're not going to be in a good mindset to perform well for that interview because they're running late. And that's made them anxious to start with. So on top of the anxiety of the interview, they're really not performing well. The other person might get up at 8 o'clock. They've got that extra hour to relax into the day, to have breakfast, to get ready properly without stress, and to saunter to the interview. They're going to be in a much better mindset to perform well than the other person. There are times, we get when something happens that makes you late. And that can't be helped when it's an outside force. But there are times when people are perpetually, all the time, they're always late to something. And that's because there's something going on in their brain, that almost wants them to be anxious, because that's how they are. And so they get out of bed late, they go to appointments late, they're just very late people. But just think about the anxiety that's being provoked in that time when you've got to be somewhere and you're running late. You're not going to perform well, you're not going to enjoy yourself when you're in that state. So if you want to reduce your level of anxiety, just be mindful about how you operate in those kind of realms. Are you the kind of person who's always late? Or are you the kind of person who prepares well and turns up on time or early? If I've got an appointment, I'd prefer to be there half an hour, up to an hour early, so that I can kind of wander around, make sure I find the place. Any kind of late buses or cars or traffic or anything that's on the roads, that hour kind of gives me a bit of a cushion. And so that by the time I get there, I'm on time. The worst thing for me, and for a lot of people, is when you're running late. It really, really increases your level of anxiety, and it's not healthy. So if you want to reduce your level of anxiety, just think about your time management and try and manage it better so you're not making yourself constantly late. Tip number 5, your thoughts. With anxiety in particular, a lot of the things that we stress over are things that potentially could happen in the future, but statistically rarely do. Most of the things we get anxious about will never actually happen. And so we're really wasting our energy by focusing on something that isn't going to happen or might not happen, and often we have no control over anyway. There's a meme going around on Facebook of two people either side of a number 6. So one person is saying it's a 6 and the other person is saying it's a 9. And that's a really important kind of lesson for anxiety, because it's all about perspective. If we can look at a problem from a different point of view, then we can sometimes overcome that problem or reduce our level of anxiety. if we can ask ourselves, the things that we're stressing over right now, are they really going to matter to us in 5 years' time? And if they are, then that's fine. But most things won't. And so if we can have some perspective about the things that we're anxious about, maybe we can change the way we think about something. I know some people at university or college, and they only got maybe 85% in their exams, and they were stressing over that. At the end of the day, as long as you learn something from it, as long as you're moving forward, then it's all good. So if they can work out how they lost those 15 or 20% and they do better next time, then they're moving forward. They've learned a lesson from that situation. Stressing over something like that isn't going to help. And sometimes it actually reduces our ability to do well in something or perform well. So if you want to reduce your level of anxiety, just take a hold of those thoughts that are racing around your head and ask yourself, is this really important? Is this going to affect me in 5 years' time? When I was doing a Cert 3 course, the last couple of weeks of the course, we had to do 9 or 10 presentations. Presentations are probably most people's biggest fear. Worrying about slipping up, saying the wrong thing, being laughed at, all those kind of things which affect people's anxiety. And presentations and standing up and talking in front of other people is a huge anxiety-provoking thing for most people. On this course there was a girl there who became very anxious about the idea of presenting, and after 6 months studying in this course full-time, she quit the week before she had to do the presentations, purely because she was just too anxious to do them. Now that's unfortunate, because that's limiting what she can do, her potential, because she wasted 6 months of her life doing a course that she couldn't complete because she couldn't do those presentations. Sometimes if we face those fears, if we overcome those things and think, everyone's anxious in the room, let's all do this together, then we can overcome those things and we can move on, and she could have had a much better job. So if anxiety is a stumbling block for you, and you're not getting where you want to do because of this anxiety, then just think about the kind of thoughts that you're having around that and ask yourself, is this really helpful for me? Is this going to matter in 5 years' time? And try and get some perspective. Try and look at the problem from someone else's point of view. Maybe even ask someone else that you trust, is this really worth my effort? Generally speaking, the answer is going to be no. If you want to reduce your anxiety levels, just get some perspective. Have a look at some other ways of looking at the problem, and you will reduce your anxiety. Tip number 4. Caffeine. A lot of people still believe that caffeine is helping them during the day. You'll hear people say things like, I can't function until I have my first coffee. They're really buying into this idea that caffeine is their friend and that it is helping them, when it's actually reality is very different. Caffeine is a stimulant, and so it increases your level of anxiety. It also reduces your ability to focus and to work, and it's not helpful for your mental health. Have a look at the kind of foods that you're eating and the kind of drinks that you're drinking, and just ask yourself whether they are contributing to your mental well-being or whether they're almost sabotaging it. You get people who try and eat a lot of sugar-rich foods that give them a bit of a boost, energy boost, but then it doesn't last very long and they come down quite quickly. And so they spend the day, on a big cycle like this, based around the kind of foods that they eat. If you look at some other healthier foods that maybe give you a more constant boost, then that might be the way to go. If you want to reduce your level of anxiety, maybe steer clear of drinks like caffeine. Tip number 3. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a relatively new concept within counselling, but it's helped a whole lot of people with anxiety problems. When you think about what depression is, it's largely focused on living in the past. So there's a trauma, abuse, neglect, something that's happened in your past, and you kind of relive it every day. You're kind of going over and over and over again, but it's not something you can change. Unless we build a time machine, we can't change something that's happened in the past. And so depression is a huge waste of your energy. Anxiety, on the other hand, is looking into the future. So we're stressing about something that's never happened, not happened yet, possibly will never happen, but we're focusing on that. And again, that's a waste of energy because there's nothing really that we can do about it. Mindfulness is where we live in the present. To see how mindfulness works, you only have to look at your average child. Most kids want to enjoy themselves and have fun and play from the minute they get up until the minute they go to sleep. You very rarely get a kid who's worried about the future or who's, upset about the past. They tend to live very much for right now. I think unfortunately as we grow older we lose that ability and we start planning things and looking to the future and maybe becoming anxious about the future and our ability to earn and ability to look after our family and all those kind of things, and we lose the ability to just accept what is right now. One of the best kind of things of mindfulness is when you do adult colouring, where you're so engaged in doing the colouring and the colours that you choose that you're just living for right now when you're completely oblivious to everything around you. There are so many ways that you can put mindfulness into practice. Just going for a walk down the street and just taking notice of the smells and the colours and the environment that you're in, and being very mindful about your personal experiences. What music is playing, what sounds are, can you hear the birds? And just being very aware and very intentional about the kind of environment that you're in, and just really soaking up everything around you and just enjoying the moment. It's very hard to become anxious when you're like that because you're so engrossed in the present that the future and the past are completely different solar systems. So if you want to reduce your level of anxiety, try and practice mindfulness. Have a diary, do adult colouring, go for a walk. Just take notice of everything around you and live for today. Tip number 2, get a good night's sleep. This is a really hard one because a lot of people with depression and anxiety struggle with sleep. But it's really important that we master this because it has a huge connection with mental well-being. Those people who don't sleep very well really are more prone to depression and anxiety and a range of other mental health problems. One of the key things when we're sleeping is our brain is going through everything that we've experienced the day before and putting it into some kind of order. It's almost like when you defrag a computer, you get increased space for the next time you use the computer. And the same is true for your brain. It's kind of clearing a bit of space so the next day you can think more clearly. If you've ever been in that situation when you're going through a situation or a problem and you just don't know how to solve it, but you go to bed, you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next morning feeling refreshed and with a completely different perspective of the problem. And often that different perspective brings about a solution. So it's really key that we get a hang of having a good night's sleep every night to ensure that our mental well-being is improved. We're doing a video soon on how to get some good night's sleep, so when that's live we'll put a link in the description down below so you can check that out as well. But it's really important that you get some strategies to improve your sleep because that's going to improve your anxiety and your depression and a whole range of other mental health problems as well. If you want to reduce your anxiety, make sure you get a good night's sleep. Tip number 1, face those fears. I've left this one to last because this is really the most important one. There are tips and strategies you can do to reduce your anxiety, but if you want to reduce your anxiety altogether, you really need to get a handle on this one. A lot of the things that we fear, that we get anxious over, are things which potentially will never ever happen. And so by worrying about stuff, we're wasting our energy. It's far better to look at solutions. You know, think, okay, so I'm anxious about this situation. Is it likely to happen? If it is, then what can we do about it? Rather than letting, you know, our brain in free fall, go, okay, I'm scared, what are we going to do about it? What can we do to manage the risk, to make sure that if it does happen, that it's not going to be as bad as we're getting anxious over? When I had a fear of crowds, when I was in my mid-20s, in the UK at Christmas time, a fear of crowds is quite a big, debilitating thing, because everyone is shopping at the same time, and you know, you're pretty much you're having to fight for your own space in that environment, and it's really quite toxic if you're scared of crowds. And so one of the ways that I kind of conquered that was I got a job as a crowd control marshal at a local rugby ground, the Leicester Tigers. The first day that I was working on my shift, I had about 200 people in the stadium that I was responsible for, and I was nervous as I wouldn't believe. You know, my anxiety was through the roof. But at the end of the day, the shift finished, everyone went away happy, there was no incidents, and I was still alive. And so I went back the next shift, and the next shift, and after a year and a half working at Leicester Tigers, my fear of crowds had gone. And so one of the ways that we face fears is to gradually immerse ourselves in the thing that we're fearing. So say you've got a fear of spiders, you know, you don't just go to a spider farm and pick them up, because that's probably going to be too much for you. So you might start with looking at pictures of spider. You might go on the internet and browse images of spiders until you can feel comfortable seeing it as a picture without your anxiety flaring up too much. And the next step might be to go to, you know, a spider farm and just look at them without touching. And then, you know, you gradually get more and more immersed until you'll feel comfortable by picking up the spider and having it walk all over you, and you're fine. So one of the ways that we can reduce our anxiety levels is by facing whatever it is in a controlled and safe environment until our brain gets used to the idea that whatever it is that it's scared of is nothing really to be scared of. The way that our brain works is that when it sees something that scares, it sends this trigger to the body to go, well, you know, be ready to run or fight, because this is quite triggering. But if the brain makes a mistake and believes something is scary when really it's not, it will still go through that same process, but we need to get our brain used to the idea that it has made a mistake, that the idea of this spider isn't going to hurt us or kill us, it's safe, it's okay, and once our brain gets the hang of that, then the anxiety will go. I can walk now in a crowded situation and there's no anxiety, there's nothing. You know, I present mental health first aid courses, and when I first started doing presentations, again I was anxious, but now I've done it so often that there's no anxiety, there's nothing. And the same will be true for you. The minute you start facing your fear and you overcome it, there will be absolutely no reaction in your brain. Your brain will be desensitized to that fear, and so you'll be free from your anxiety. My top number one tip that I really urge you to do if you want to reduce your anxiety is to face those fears. Hey guys, that's all we've got time for today. I really hope those 10 tips will help you to reduce your level of anxiety. I encourage you to please subscribe down below and leave a comment below on the fears that you've got, or maybe you've overcome the fears and you've got an extra tip that I haven't included. Please leave it down in the comments and encourage other people to reduce their level of anxiety as well. If you've watched this video and you're still anxious and you're still nervous and there's still some anxiety going on, I also really urge you to go and see your GP. Tell them about the anxiety and maybe do a mental health care plan and get some counselling. There are so many tips and strategies out there to reducing anxiety. These are just 10 of them, but there are lots and lots more. So if you've got any suggestions, please leave down in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.